They say the people who know you best can hurt you the worst. I never fully understood that until last month. My name is Bennett. I'm 39, and if you asked anyone in my family 5 years ago who the successful one was, they'd all point to me. I never wore it on my sleeve, but I did well for myself. Started a small logistics company in my late 20s, grew it brick by brick, and sold it at 35 for more money than I ever imagined having. I moved into consulting, kept a low profile, and most people in my town still see me as the guy who drives the old black pickup, or Bennett who brings his son to Little League. Family was always complicated. My younger sister, Camille, has this way of turning everything into a performance. She's 35, a single mom, works part-time at a boutique, and makes the rest of her money from influencing and affiliate marketing, though none of us really know what that means. She posts a lot of filtered selfies and long captions about manifesting wealth. My parents coddled her growing up, always excusing her outbursts or mistakes, chalking them up to her being artistic or sensitive. Meanwhile, I was expected to stay quiet, help out, and never make a scene. That dynamic never changed, not even after I made more than all of them combined. In fact, the more I succeeded, the more Camille and my parents seemed to twist it into a negative. I was stingy because I didn't flaunt it, unemotional because I didn't overshare, unapproachable because I didn't let myself get pulled into their chaos. I tried to keep the peace. I really did. I paid off my parents' mortgage as a surprise for their anniversary. I helped Camille cover rent more than once, bought my niece a laptop for school, even paid for my mom's knee surgery when insurance wouldn't cover it. None of it was ever enough. Gratitude wasn't in their vocabulary. Camille once joked that I had a savior complex, and my mom nervously laughed, like she wasn't sure if Camille meant it as an insult or a compliment. I just nodded and changed the subject. But none of that really hit me the way this one night did. It was my son's birthday last month. Eli turned 10. He's everything to me. Smart, thoughtful, quiet like me, but with a kind of inner sparkle I never had at his age. He saved up his allowance for months to buy a necklace for Camille's daughter, Ava, who's 12. Just a simple pendant with her birthstone. Eli wrapped it himself, even made a little card with a sketch of them at the lake from a family trip last summer. He was so proud of it. He told me on the drive to the restaurant, "I think Ava's gonna really like it. She doesn't smile much lately, but I think this will make her happy." We were all meeting for a joint family dinner, one of those rare times everyone actually made it. My parents, Camille, Ava, Eli, and me. Camille had picked the restaurant, some trendy place downtown with mood lighting and overpriced appetizers. She'd been hyping it on Instagram all week, tagging the location and hinting at birthday vibes incoming. It wasn't really Eli's style, but he didn't complain. He just sat next to me in his button-up shirt, gift in hand, waiting for Ava to show up. When they finally arrived, late, of course, Camille was already on speakerphone with someone, laughing loudly about some brand deal, while Ava trailed behind her, scrolling through her phone. No happy birthday for Eli, not even a nod. Just Camille dropping her purse on the chair and saying, "Ugh, this place better be worth the hype." I should have known right then it was going to be a disaster. We ordered. Small talk. My dad complained about traffic. My mom asked Eli if he was excited to be in double digits. Camille filmed a boomerang of her wine glass clinking against Ava's Shirley Temple and posted it with the caption #BirthdayQueen, referring to Ava, not Eli. After the food came, Eli tapped Ava's arm and shyly handed her the little wrapped box. "I made this for you," he said. "Happy birthday too." She blinked. "Thanks," she mumbled, unwrapping it like it was a chore. When she opened the box, she tilted her head. "It's a necklace," she said flatly. Camille leaned over and peered in, then snorted. "Oh, honey," she said, loud enough for the whole table to hear. "That's adorable. He's used to cheap things, just like you, Bennett." The table went silent for a second. Then my dad chuckled. My mom gave that tight, uncomfortable smile she does when Camille says something edgy. Ava shrugged and slid the necklace back into the box. Eli didn't say anything. He just looked down at his plate, cheeks flushed. Something cracked in me. I didn't say a word right away, just looked across the table at Camille and then at my son, who was pretending to be fascinated by the lemon slice in his water. My heart was pounding, but not with anger, not yet. Just something deeper, like the realization that all the quiet sacrifices, all the times I bit my tongue to keep the peace, were just fuel for Camille's fire. I stood up. "Server?" I called, waving a hand. A young guy in an apron rushed over. "Put everything on her tab," I said calmly, pointing to Camille. "Appetizers, drinks, everything so far. I won't be needing dessert." Camille blinked. "What are you?" But I was already reaching into my jacket pocket, pulling out a sealed envelope. I dropped it on the table in front of her. "That's for you," I said. "It explains everything." My parents were confused. Camille opened the envelope and skimmed the letter. Her face changed, first puzzled, then panicked. She looked up. "Wait, what does this mean? You're cutting off the trust." I didn't respond. I just looked at Eli and said, "Ready to go, bud?" He nodded and grabbed his jacket. As we turned to leave, I caught a glimpse of Camille's expression, like a kid caught cheating on a test, but too proud to admit it. My mom was whispering frantically. My dad was frozen, fork midair. But I didn't care. I held Eli's hand as we walked out into the night. I didn't sleep much that night. After we left the restaurant, Eli and I stopped at a 24-hour diner on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, just booths with cracked red vinyl and waitresses who called you Han. But Eli perked up when they brought him a paper menu with puzzles on the back and a chocolate milkshake, extra whipped cream. We didn't talk much. He didn't mention the necklace. I didn't bring it up. But I watched him scribble in the crossword with that focused little brow of his and thought, this is the last time I let them humiliate him. Because the truth is, that dinner wasn't a one-time thing. That was just the latest eruption in a long, simmering pattern of Camille's pettiness, my parents' blind loyalty to her, and the way I'd been quietly shoveling money and patience into a family that never gave anything back. But that moment, that look on Eli's face when they all laughed, like he had done something wrong for trying to be kind, that cracked something open, something I couldn't seal shut again. The next morning, I opened my laptop and began reviewing every financial tether Camille still had to me. It was a longer list than I wanted to admit. A $1,200 monthly allowance funneled through a joint account I'd set up, just in case she ever really needed it. An auto-paid lease on her SUV, which she drove around town like she'd earned it. The emergency credit card I'd given her back when she got sick for a month and couldn't work, still active, with a $10,000 limit, currently maxed out. I used to rationalize it all. Tell myself, she's Ava's mom. She's trying her best. But it wasn't about Ava. It never was. Camille saw me not as her brother, but as her backup plan, her safety net, her doormat. And she wasn't the only one. My parents always had a favorite. I just didn't realize how far that favoritism stretched until I started pulling the financial threads. I discovered my name on their utilities account. Apparently, I'd been footing their internet and water bills for 3 years. The house I gifted them after the mortgage was paid off still had property taxes auto-deducted from my business account, which my dad must have linked during a tech help session years back. Every little bit felt like another paper cut. Not the money. I had plenty. It was the lack of respect. The assumption. The quiet leeching wrapped in polite smiles and backhanded jokes. And all of that might have festered in silence if Camille hadn't pushed harder. Because after I cut her off at dinner, after I left that envelope, she didn't back down. She doubled down. 3 days later, my phone buzzed nonstop during a client meeting. I silenced it. Checked it afterward. 10 missed calls from my mom. 2 from Camille. 1 from a number I didn't recognize. And then the texts started pouring in. You embarrassed your family. Camille's crying. Ava saw everything. How could you abandon them over a stupid joke? Is this about your ego or your son? And the one that made me pause, because it didn't come from Camille or my mom. I'm sorry, Uncle Bennett. Mom's been really upset. She said you're not family anymore. It was from Ava. I stared at that text for a long time. Because Ava wasn't the problem. She was a quiet kid, stuck in Camille's tornado. I always made an effort to include her in things, science fairs, movie nights, weekends with Eli at the lake. She'd talk more when Camille wasn't around. Once told me, you're the only grown-up who listens without interrupting. That stuck with me. But now Camille was dragging her into it. I didn't respond. I needed space. Time to think. But Camille wasn't done. That Friday, Eli had a small get-together at the house with his friends. Board games, pizza, Nerf guns, the usual. I was setting up balloons in the living room when the doorbell rang. I figured it was one of the parents. Instead, it was Camille. Dressed in all black, big sunglasses, fake tears. I need to talk to you, she said, brushing past me into the hallway. I stepped in front of her. Now's not a good time. She waved her hand dramatically. This won't take long. Eli came out of the kitchen, holding a slice of pizza, and froze. His face shifted into something guarded. Camille gave him a strained smile. Hey, buddy. He didn't respond. Camille sighed. See? This is what you're teaching him. Resentment. Coldness. He's just a kid. I stepped between them. Then maybe don't show up uninvited and unload your drama in front of him. She bristled. Wow. You've really turned into dad, haven't you? Condescending. Controlling. I stayed calm. Camille. This is not the time. But she didn't care. She pulled a folded paper from her purse and waved it in front of me. Then explain this, she snapped. The trust fund you said was locked until I turned 40? You liquidated it. I called the bank. I nodded. Yes. Because the clause in the original setup was temporary. You never contributed a cent to it. I funded it for Ava, not for you to burn through on handbags and manifestation retreats. Her mouth twisted into a sneer. You're jealous of me. You always have been. That's why you hide your success. You think if you act modest, you're better than us. But guess what? Money doesn't make you loved. Eli's voice, quiet from behind me. You don't treat people you love like that. Camille blinked. She looked at him as if noticing he was still there for the first time. I turned to Eli. Go upstairs, bud. I'll be right there. He hesitated. She's just going to yell more. Camille scoffed. Listen to this brat. Get out, I said, my voice flat. No anger. Just finality. Camille opened her mouth, then shut it. She backed toward the door, clenching the paper in her fist. You'll regret this, she muttered. I didn't reply. I closed the door behind her and locked it. The next day, my parents showed up unannounced. I was mowing the lawn when I saw their car pull in. My mom got out first, holding a Tupperware container like it was a peace offering. My dad trailed behind her, arms crossed, jaw tight. Thought we'd bring Eli some brownies, my mom said, forcing a smile. I turned off the mower. He's at a sleepover. She hesitated. Well, we thought maybe we could talk. As a family. I wiped sweat from my forehead. About what? My dad stepped forward. Camille's been going through a lot. You really blindsided her. And us. I exhaled slowly. She mocked my son's gift. In public. In front of him. She was joking, my mom said quickly. You know how she is. Yes, I said. I do. My dad frowned. So you're punishing her for being herself? I stared at them. Is that the standard now? Being herself means cruelty, manipulation, entitlement? And I'm the problem for stepping away? My mom looked like she might cry. But Bennett, she needs us. She's struggling. Because she chose not to work. Because she chose to burn every bridge. Because you all taught her there would never be consequences. There was a long silence. Then my dad, voice low, you're not better than this family. I'm not, I said. But I'm finally done being worse off because of it. I didn't invite them in. I let them stew on the porch for 5 minutes before they got the hint and left. But the betrayal wasn't done. 3 nights later, I was in my office when I got a notification on my phone, an unusual login attempt on my business account. I checked the IP address. Local. Same provider as mine. Someone nearby. I logged in manually. There were 6 failed password attempts. Then I saw it. A transfer request, saved but not submitted. $8,000 to an account ending in digits I recognized, Camille's. I froze. I hadn't told her I'd changed my business banking credentials. But my old laptop, my backup, was still in the guest room. Eli sometimes used it. So did Ava, when she stayed over. I stormed into the room. The laptop was gone. I called Ava. She picked up on the second ring. Hey, Uncle Bennett. Did your mom take the old laptop when she came over? A pause. She said you said she could borrow it. I didn't. Another pause. She said you'd understand. I hung up. The next morning, I called the bank. Locked the account. Changed everything. Filed a report. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just about Camille anymore. This was a pattern. Enabled by our parents. Ignored by me. And now it had escalated to theft. Manipulation. Even pulling Ava into it. My son was being mocked. My accounts were being touched. And every time I tried to walk away, they dragged me back with guilt, gaslighting, and theatrics. I stared at the screen for a long time. I thought about that necklace. About Eli's face. About every dinner, every holiday, every joke at my expense passed off as family teasing. Then I opened a new document. I titled it, Operation Clean Cut. If I had to name the day it all came crashing down, the real bottom, not just the surface cracks, It wasn't the restaurant or the laptop or the betrayal texts. It was a Tuesday. Gray sky, drizzle tapping against the windows. I remember because Eli had forgotten his math homework and I offered to drive it to school during lunch. A small thing. Just being a dad. As I pulled back into the driveway, I noticed something odd. A white sedan parked crooked across the edge of my property, tires brushing up against the grass. I didn't recognize it at first. Then I saw the bumper sticker. Manifest it, Babe Crescent Moon. Camille. I sighed. When I walked inside, the house was quiet, too quiet. No TV, no music, no footsteps. But the scent of her perfume hung in the air, that overly sweet vanilla she drenched herself in when she was about to put on a show. She was sitting on my living room couch, legs crossed, scrolling on her phone like she lived there. You broke in, I said flatly. She looked up, unfazed. Spare key under the turtle statue. Not exactly Fort Knox, Bennett. You had no right. She smiled. Technically, you never asked for it back. I pinched the bridge of my nose. What do you want? Camille stood and began pacing slowly, theatrically, like a lawyer building her case. You're being cruel. Everyone thinks so. Mom's barely sleeping. Dad's blaming himself. Ava's been asking why Uncle Bennett is mad at us. Maybe because Uncle Bennett is tired of being your personal ATM. She ignored that. I want to propose a solution. A compromise. I'm not interested. She stopped pacing. Then I'll escalate. And just like that, the threat hung between us. I didn't respond. I just stared at her. I still have photos, you know, she said, tapping her phone. Texts. Screenshots. Old stuff. You venting about Mom. Jokes about Dad's drinking. The whole folder. My chest tightened. I could make people think you're not as squeaky clean as you pretend. That you're just another rich jerk who abandoned his family. Might even spin a narrative online, too. You know how people love a scandal. It wasn't just a bluff. Camille had always been strategic with her messes. She knew where the cracks were and how to wedge her fingers inside. You do that? I asked quietly. She shrugged. You backed me into a corner. I nodded slowly. Then I walked to the front door, opened it, and stood aside. Get out. I'm not finished. I am. She didn't move. I mean it, Camille. If you're still here in 5 seconds, I'm calling the police and reporting a break-in. Her eyes narrowed. For a second, I thought she might throw something, scream, unravel. But instead, she smiled. Cold. Controlled. She slid her phone into her purse, strutted past me, and paused on the porch. You always thought you were better than us, she said. But deep down, you're just scared. Of being alone. Of not being needed. Then she walked to her car and drove away. That night, I sat at the kitchen table staring at the old family photo Ava had made for me years ago. A simple frame with popsicle sticks, Eli and her grinning with ice cream on their faces. A birthday party I had thrown. One of the few where everyone was smiling. I turned the frame down. I called my lawyer the next morning. We spent the next 6 weeks dismantling everything. Every financial tie. Every asset. Every account. Every co-signed anything. I dissolved the joint account, revoked Camille's access to the emergency credit card, and reported the fraudulent laptop access. The trust fund? Liquidated and restructured into a separate education account, one solely in Ava's name, but with controls that would make Fort Knox look like a vending machine. I filed a restraining order for my property and changed all the locks. Hired a digital security expert to sweep my devices. You'd think I was prepping for war. And in a way I was. But the worst wasn't the logistics. It was the fallout. My parents stopped speaking to me. No calls. No texts. Not even for Eli's soccer tournament. When I sent them an invitation, my mom replied with, maybe next time, if you're ready to be civil. Civil. As if I'd been the one shouting in restaurants or stealing from family bank accounts. Eli felt it too. He'd ask me, are we going to Grandma's house for Thanksgiving? And I'd lie, they're traveling this year. Or why didn't Ava come to my game? And I'd say, she probably had homework. But kids know. They always know. It was a lonely few months. I started losing sleep. My appetite dipped. I stopped returning social invites. At one point, I stood in the shower for so long the hot water ran out, and I didn't even notice. I just stood there in the cold, breathing. And still, I didn't regret it. Because sometimes hitting bottom isn't one dramatic fall. It's a series of small slips until you look around and realize you're somewhere dark. But once you see it clearly, you get to decide what comes next. For me, it started with Eli. One night, I walked past his room and heard him crying. Not loud, but soft, like he was trying not to be heard. I knocked. He didn't answer. I opened the door and saw him curled up under the blankets, his sketchbook clutched to his chest. "What's wrong?" I asked, sitting on the edge of the bed. He hesitated. "I miss Ava." I nodded. "I know. And I miss Grandma. And Grandpa, even though they're mean sometimes." I didn't correct him. I just listened. "I don't like that they don't like you." I smiled sadly. "It's not that simple, buddy. But you're good," he said. "You always do the right thing." That one sentence cracked something open inside me. A tiny floodgate. I hugged him. "Thanks," I whispered. "That means more than you know." And that's when the rebuilding started. Not all at once. Not with a grand gesture. Just slow, steady steps. I signed Eli up for a youth art program downtown. Something Camille used to mock as a waste of Saturdays. He loved it. Started drawing more. Smiling more. I started running again in the mornings, even if just for a mile or two. I dusted off an old leather-bound notebook and began journaling. Not just about Camille, but about everything. My childhood. My fears. My mistakes. My hopes. I reconnected with people I'd let drift away. Old friends. Former coworkers. Not out of desperation, but curiosity. What are they doing now? How are they living? I started going to a local woodworking class, something I'd always meant to try. Turns out I have a knack for it. Built a bookshelf for Eli's room. He painted it bright blue and covered it in galaxy stickers. I even started seeing someone. Claire, a nurse practitioner who volunteered at the community garden. We met through mutual friends. She had this calm energy, like nothing you said could shake her. On our third date, I told her everything. About Camille, my family, the restaurant, the fallout. She didn't flinch, just nodded and said, "It takes strength to let go of the wrong people." That sentence stuck with me. It didn't fix everything, of course. The loneliness lingered. Some nights were still hard. But slowly, I began to find myself again. Not the version shaped by family guilt or obligation, but the version that existed before all that. I started documenting everything. Not just for myself, but for Eli. So one day, when he's older, he'll understand why I walked away. Why I didn't go back. And then, one day in early spring, I got a letter. Not an email. Not a text. A real letter. Handwritten. In Ava's careful, rounded script. "Dear Uncle Bennett, I don't know what happened exactly. Mom won't tell me the truth. But I miss you. I miss Eli. I think you're the only one who ever told me the truth. I want to see you again. Even if Mom says no. Love. Ava." There was no return address. But it was postmarked from a neighborhood across town, one I didn't recognize. I did some digging. Found out Camille had moved. A smaller place. She hadn't posted it online. Probably embarrassed. I didn't respond immediately. I needed to think. But that letter, that tiny sliver of light, told me something important. Camille's world was shrinking. Mine was growing. I didn't need revenge to feel whole again. I just needed space, time, and the strength to rebuild without waiting for them to change. But even so, I knew something was coming. Something big. Because people like Camille don't let go. They lash out. And she hadn't made her final move yet. They say forgiveness is freedom. That anger weighs you down, and letting go is the only way forward. But here's the thing. I had let go. Of the hope they'd ever treat me right. Of the guilt I'd carried for years. Of the belief that I needed them to be whole. What I hadn't let go of was the truth. And now I was ready to use it. It started with that letter from Ava. I kept it in my desk drawer, reread it often. Something about her words haunted me. Not just the sadness in them, but the clarity. She didn't sound confused. She sounded tired. And that told me more than anything else that Camille's chaos wasn't just affecting me anymore. It was eating away at her own daughter. I didn't respond right away. I waited. Observed. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing little things. Camille's Instagram suddenly shifted tone. Gone were the boomerangs of mimosas and rooftop brunches. The designer bags. The hashtag softlife captions. In their place were reposted memes about hard times revealing true friends and cutting off toxic people. Ava appeared less and less in her stories. And when she did, she looked pale, tired, eyes down. Then came the moment that flipped a switch. Claire, my girlfriend, the nurse practitioner, called me one afternoon. She sounded off. "I just saw Ava at urgent care," she said. "I can't tell you much, obviously. Patient confidentiality. But she looked like she hadn't eaten a real meal in days. My chest tightened. Did Camille bring her in? No. She was dropped off by a neighbor. I went silent. Claire hesitated. Bennett, she asked the front desk if anyone could call you. She said, my uncle. He'd come get me. That was it. That was the last push I needed. I didn't storm over there. I didn't call Camille and threaten her. That would have tipped my hand. Instead, I opened a notebook, drew a line down the center, labeled one side leverage, the other exposure. Because if I was going to end this, I was going to end it thoroughly. No more half measures. No more band-aids on bullet wounds. I was going to dismantle the empire of lies Camille had built. Carefully, quietly. And I wasn't going to do it alone. The first person I looped in was Avery. She was an old friend of mine from college, tech-savvy, freelance digital investigator. We'd stayed in touch over the years, mostly trading memes and bad coffee recommendations. But when I sent her a cryptic message, need help with digital footprints, family-related, you in? She replied in under 5 minutes. Always. Send me the mess. Over the next 2 weeks, Avery dug deep. Old forums, burner email addresses, private social media backups. Camille had always been careless with her digital trail. She recycled passwords, overshared in DMs, and never considered who might be screenshotting. Avery found everything. The fake GoFundMe Camille ran under a pseudonym 3 years ago, claiming Ava needed emergency dental surgery. She raised $3,600 in 2 weeks. Never went to a dentist. The Instagram DMs where she mocked her followers for being desperate enough to buy my manifestation course. She'd copied half the content from a free ebook and slapped her name on it. The Facebook posts, now deleted, where she complained about the rich jerk brother who thinks money buys loyalty, while simultaneously begging me for another rent extension. Avery packaged it all in a tidy 50-page PDF. Labeled, timestamped, watermarked. I added it to a folder on my desktop titled Insurance. Then came phase 2, legal footing. I called my lawyer, Vanessa, and gave her the rundown. I don't want to sue, I said. I want leverage, a paper trail, and I want Ava safe. Vanessa was sharp, no nonsense. We'll start with a cease and desist, then a custody review angle. I'm not looking to take Ava from her, I clarified. I just want to be able to protect her. Give her an out. Camille's dangerous, not abusive yet. Vanessa nodded. There's a difference. But paper trails don't lie. We'll build one. Over the next month, I documented everything. Every time Camille posted a fake ad or made false claims online. Every time Ava showed up at school late or missed it entirely. I kept in touch with Eli's teachers. Turns out Ava had been borrowing school supplies from him without telling her mom. I even hired a private investigator, not to spy on Camille, but to quietly verify Ava's living conditions. He reported back with photos. Mold on the bedroom walls. Half-empty fridge. Ava walking herself to school at 6:30 a.m. in the dark. It broke my heart, but it strengthened my case. Still, I knew this had to be surgical. Because Camille wasn't just careless. She was vindictive. She tried to spin anything I did. Paint herself as the victim. Rally the family behind her. Which is why, before I made my move, I needed to do something difficult. I had to confront my parents. It was a Sunday afternoon when I showed up at their house unannounced. They were sitting on the back porch, my dad drinking a beer, my mom working on a crossword. The minute they saw me, my mom's face tensed. We weren't expecting visitors, she said. I know, I replied. But I need to talk to you. My dad stood slowly. If this is about Camille, it is. But not the way you think. I sat down opposite them and pulled out a manila envelope. Inside was a printed copy of Avery's report. I slid it across the table. Read it. All of it. No interruptions. They hesitated. Then my mom opened it. I watched her eyes move. Her face shift. My dad leaned over, brow furrowed. 15 minutes later, the porch was silent. She did all this? My mom whispered. Yes. And Ava? She's not okay. I'm working on making sure she's safe. Without dragging her through the mud. My dad looked pale. I didn't know. You didn't want to know. He flinched. I stood. I'm giving you a choice. Stay neutral, and I'll respect that. But take her side again, and I cut you off completely. No visits. No calls. No Eli. My mom looked up, tears in her eyes. You do that? I already did. This is me offering a chance to fix it. They didn't respond. But neither did they object. That was enough, for now. With the legal ground prepped, allies aligned, and evidence secured, I began the final step. The setup. I created a dummy Instagram account, messaged Camille posing as a lifestyle brand, looking for micro-influencers. Told her we wanted to sponsor her for a $5,000 campaign. Just needed a few details first. She bid instantly. Sent over a media kit. Inflated numbers. Screenshots faked. I waited. Then asked for a short pitch video as part of our brand compatibility test. She sent it within 2 hours. In it, she was wearing a rented blazer, standing in front of a fake plant, talking about authenticity and trust with my audience. I forwarded it to Avery. She laughed so hard, she nearly choked on her coffee. We edited that video, spliced it next to her mocking DMs, her fraudulent GoFundMe, the fake reviews, the contradictions. We made a digital file called Behind the Filter, Camille Unmasked. Then I sat on it, because I wasn't going to publish it. No, I was going to show it to her. Camille always thought she was the smartest person in the room, the center of attention, the one who'd always land on her feet, even if someone else had to cushion the fall. She was right about one thing. She always landed on her feet. But this time, there was no cushion waiting. Only the truth. And me. It happened in the spring, just as the air started warming and people started pretending like winter never happened. The town was small enough that word traveled fast, but not fast enough for Camille to see the train coming. I'd chosen the setting carefully. It had to be public, but not theatrical. Private enough for discretion, but open enough that she wouldn't try anything foolish. I picked a bistro near the courthouse, neutral, quiet, classy enough for her to feel important, casual enough for me to stay in control. I texted her from a number she didn't recognize. Hi Camille. We're very impressed with your influencer portfolio. One of our clients saw your pitch and wants to meet in person. Private brand dinner. $10,000 contract potential. Interested? She responded in under a minute. Yes. When and where? I gave her the details. Friday, 6 p.m., outdoor seating, dress smart. She showed up wearing a white blazer and designer heels she probably couldn't afford anymore. Her makeup was layered on, contour sharp, smile tight. She looked exactly like what she wanted the world to believe. Unbothered, put together, in control. That illusion didn't last long. She spotted me at the table and froze. Where's the client? She asked as she approached. I gestured to the empty seat across from me. Sit. I'm the client. Her face twisted. Is this a joke? I didn't smile. Not at all. But we do have business to discuss. She stood there for a moment, caught between indignation and curiosity. Then, ever the opportunist, she Saturday, you have 2 minutes. I placed a sleek black folder on the table and slid it across to her. Everything you've said, done, posted, and manipulated for the past 5 years. Documented, dated, verified. She opened it, scanned the pages. Her face slowly drained of color. I know about the GoFundMe scam, I said. The fake sponsors. The fraudulent tax filings. The embezzled money from Ava's school fundraiser. The influencers you impersonated to gain followers. And the laptop, illegal access to a protected business account. You can't prove any of that, she said, voice wavering. I don't have to, I replied. Because your own words already did. She looked up, eyes sharp. So what is this? A threat? No, I said, calm as ever. This is a choice. I leaned in, voice lower. You're going to sign Ava over to me for temporary guardianship. 6 months, renewable. It's already drawn up. You'll still have visitation rights. But she'll live with me. Attend Eli's school. Eat real food. Sleep in a clean bed. You're insane, she hissed. You can't just take my daughter. I'm not taking her, I said. You're giving her to me. Because if you don't, I pressed send. I pulled my phone from my pocket and placed it on the table. On the screen was a post preview, side-by-side clips of Camille's influencer video and her mocking DMs, the GoFundMe bank transfers, timestamps, photos of Ava's mold-ridden room. Set to go live on every platform she used. Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, even Facebook, where all her old high school haters still lurked, just waiting for a scandal. You think I care what people think? She said, trying to sound defiant. I just looked at her. I already spoke to the school board, I added. And the bank. They're opening a fraud investigation. And your influencer deals? Already contacted your sponsors. Sent them the report. A few have already blocked you. That was the first real crack. Her face twitched. You used your daughter as a prop, I said. You used my money to fund your fantasy. And when that dried up, you tried to steal more. You tried to weaponize guilt, twist Ava against me, and frame yourself as the victim. But you're not the victim, Camille. I paused. Let the silence hang. You're the villain. And your story ends here. She swallowed hard. You destroy my life. No, I said softly. You already did. I'm just making sure you don't drag anyone else down with you. She sat frozen for a long time. Then, without a word, she reached into her purse, pulled out a pen, and signed the guardianship papers. The moment the ink dried, I took the folder, folded the documents neatly, and stood up. As I turned to leave, she finally spoke. What are you going to tell Ava? I looked back. The truth. But I'll be kinder about it than you ever were. Then I walked away. The fallout was quick, public and private. By the end of the week, Camille's influencer accounts were either locked or wiped. Sponsors pulled out. Her fake brand collabs were exposed. A few of her followers tried to defend her, but the screenshots were too damning. Her GoFundMe scam made local headlines. The story never mentioned Ava's name, just a minor used inappropriately to solicit funds. The school launched its own inquiry into the missing fundraiser money. Parents were livid. Camille was quietly banned from school property until further notice. My parents? They broke their silence after the article dropped. I got a call from my mom late one night. She was crying. I didn't know it was this bad, she said. I'm so sorry, Bennett. I know, I said. I wish that mattered. There was a long pause. Can we still see Eli? And Ava? I'll think about it, I replied. But I'm not rushing back into a house where silence meant complicity. My dad never called. Ava moved in the following Monday. It was strange at first, like housing a ghost who wasn't sure she was allowed to be alive again. She was quiet, polite, overly apologetic about everything from dirty dishes to asking for second helpings. It took a few weeks before she laughed out loud. I still remember it. Eli had built a makeshift bowling alley with empty soda cans, and Ava knocked them all down with a shoe. She laughed so hard she fell onto the carpet, gasping. It was the first time I saw her look like a kid in months. She started sleeping better, eating better. Her teachers emailed me, praising her dramatic turnaround. I didn't tell her about everything I'd done to make it happen. I just told her she was safe, that she mattered, that she deserved better than what she got. Some nights, I still caught her staring at the front door, like she was waiting for Camille to show up in a fit of rage. She never did. Eventually, I told Ava everything, carefully, in pieces, on her terms. She didn't cry. She just nodded. And then she said something I'll never forget. Thanks for not making me hate her. I blinked. What do you mean? You told the truth, she said. But you didn't make it ugly. You just let it be what it was. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. Because that was it. That was the real revenge. Not the exposure. Not the downfall. But the clean break. The healing. The quiet return to peace. A year later, the guardianship was made permanent. Camille never contested it. Never showed up to the review hearing. She sent Ava a single letter around Christmas time. It was full of excuses and vague promises. Ava read it once and tucked it away in a drawer. She never brought it up again. My parents came around slowly, cautiously. They apologized to Eli, to Ava. They started showing up to school plays, soccer games. Not as saviors, just as people trying to do better. I kept them at arm's length, but at least now, it was my choice. Claire and I grew stronger. She became part of our lives in a way that felt natural, earned, not forced. She and Ava bonded over plants. She taught Eli how to make lasagna from scratch. Some nights, we'd all sit on the back porch, me, Claire, Eli, Ava, and I'd look at them and think, this is the family I built. Not the one I was born into. Not the one that tried to break me, but the one I chose. The one I fought for. And in the end, that made all the difference. Because the most powerful revenge is becoming everything they told you you couldn't be, and doing it without them.